Alright guys, I'm going to show you how to do a Damascus billet. What I've done here, I get my steel in pieces that are 1.5 inches wide. They're 4 feet in length, and you get varying thicknesses. This is 1095. So what I do is I use my metal chop saw over here to cut them. I'm comfortable working with a 3-inch piece of steel for my initial welds, because that's the key, is the initial part of the welding process has to happen really quick and seamlessly, and then the follow-up welds and pressing of the metal is pretty straightforward. So my standard billet, which is what I have here, is 8 pieces of 15N20. This is the steel that will etch out with the silvery color. It has a higher nickel component to it. So they're a little thinner here, but there's 8 of those. 1084, which is a great all-around high carbon steel, real easy to harden. I go with 6 pieces of that. And then 1095, again, another really high carbon content steel, a little trickier to heat treat, but very doable. And when done in Damascus, it's real straightforward. Okay, so I use 3 pieces of those. You only see 2 here. My third piece is actually my long bar stock I had to begin with. I don't know why people who do Damascus struggle over this. They're always welding on a bar to hold onto it, and it's always breaking off, and they're always complaining about that. The way to avoid that is to use a piece of long stock and actually make it be part of the billet. In the end, I just cut it off, but it won't break off during the process. Trust me on this one. So anyhow, I've got these pieces here. There should be, 17 pieces of steel put into the initial weld. The next thing I'm going to do is take them to the belt sander. I'm going to hold them with a magnet, and I'm going to grind them this way, which is making grooves go up and forth, but cleaning up the metal, all the stuff there's like a, I don't know what it's called, but when I order this, there's something on it that helps prevent it from rusting during sitting around and shipping. So we need to get all that off, because that could potentially contaminate the welds. The theory behind having the grooves go this way is that when you do the compression, the initial weld, flux and anything that may have worked its way in between the pieces of metal will have like little micro channels to squish out of there. I don't know if it's true or not, but hey, all of my pieces weld together really well, so I'm going to keep doing it if it isn't broken. All right, so stay tuned. I'm going to do a little grinding, boring for you guys, and then I'll show you what happens next. Alright, so I have my pieces of steel cleaned up. You don't have to worry about the edges here, but the centers have all been ground, as I said, with the grooves going up and down. I also, and again, it's probably not necessary, I mark like the ones with the 4 lines is 1084. The white ones that have 5 lines are 1095. And I stagger them, which may not be necessary either. So I've got my centerpiece, which is 1095. And I'm going to just take and put a piece of 15N20 on each side of it. And then I'm going to go to the 1084. One on each side. And I see I'm doing it evenly going out. 15N20, 15N20. I'm going to do another 1084. 1084. That one's a little short. I might move it out further. 15 and 20, 15 and 20. Now I'm going to 1095. Oh, that one's still a little warm. 1095, 15 and 20, 15 and 20, 1084, 1084. And what I always do is I always set them up so they're smooth on this high side. And it'll be a little uneven sometimes along the back, but it evens out as you start the weld. So I kind of get them laying out like this. Get my clamp to just kind of get this started. And then all we're going to use now is a MIG welder. Some people use an arc welder. The only thing I'm doing there is trying to hold these pieces together nice and tight while I bring them up to temperature to do the actual forge welding. So the welder that I'm about to use has nothing to do with making Damascus other than holding pieces of steel together temporarily. So I get them all in there nice and smooth. Torque this down. And then this is kind of, I'll give you a show what I end up with here. So this is pre-anything. I'm just got them held together by a clamp. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4. That with 4 lines is 1084. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines there is 1095. I stagger them. I'm probably just OCD. I don't know if it's even necessary as long as you have the nickel distributed evenly, because when you etch it, that's what's going to give you that nice silvery color. So there you have it. That's a billet. It's going to be 3 inches long, 1.5 inches wide, and whatever this makes up to, but it's 17 layers, the initial billet. So stay tuned. I'll weld it. So here I've transferred the billet over to my vise, still have the clamp on the bottom, and I've got it in here nice and snug. And I'm going to take my MIG welder now, and I'm going to burn a couple beads right across this nice and hard just to get into the steel, hold it together. I'm going to flip it over and do the same thing on the bottom. That isn't anything to do with forge welding other than to hold the pieces together. Okay, so don't mistake, I'm not using a welder to make Damascus. It's a coal forge that does the whole forging. When you weld with a welder, like a MIG welder or an arc welder, you're literally just binding these these pieces of steel together by their outer edges. When you forge weld, you heat the entire billet up, and it's a form of diffusion weld where the pieces of metal now share common properties. They actually can share carbon molecules or atoms, whatever you call them. All right, hang tight. Cat's talking to me. Alright, so you're looking at the assembled billet, ready to do the forge weld process. I've got a couple MIG welds you can see on each side, just holding the pieces of metal together. We're gonna get the old forge here going, and the next part of this video will be about how you do the actual welding process. But this is going to be titled billet preparation, because everything I've done has to be done if you want to get a good billet.